Aloha mai kako, everyone. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for being here in person and online. We want to welcome everyone to this very special event, highlighting why Korea matters to Hawaii and why Hawaii matters to Korea. Thank you all for being present here again at the University of Hawaii at Manoa Korea Studies Center, this beautiful venue, and for your generous, thank you so much to the Korean Studies Center for the generous hosting of the reception. I know a lot of you came early. Thank you so much for networking and allowing us to gather post-COVID-19. I'd like to take this opportunity as well to welcome our distinguished guest, Lieutenant Governor of the State of Hawaii, Sylvia Luke, as well as Hawaii State Representative Jean Ward and Mrs. Ward, and Major General Kenneth Hara and Mrs. Myung Hara, as well as the Consul General Sok In Hong from the Republic of Korea, and Honorary Consul for Sri Lanka, Bidi Kori, as well as Honorary Consul General from Germany, Dennis Saleh, Dr. Charles Morrison, our East-West Center former president, as well as Dr. Ned Schultz and Dr. Tai Un Beck, and all of our other distinguished guests who are here, our UH community alumni and our community leaders. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to pause and exchange and reflect on this very important relationship. I'm still getting feedback, so I'm going to move back from this a little bit, maybe even further. So can you hear me back there? You can hear me. Okay, maybe that's better. So on the 20th of April, we actually rolled out the Korea Matters for America and America Matters for Korea. We're really excited to do that on Capitol Hill. And this is the fourth edition of this collaboration between the Korea Economic Institute and the Che Institute for Advanced Studies. The project maps out trade, investment, employment, business, diplomacy, security, education, and tourism, and people-to-people connections between the United States and South Korea at the national, state, and local levels. And of course, if you didn't grab one of these, you can find the details online at the asiamattersforamerica.org. You know, this past weekend, Dr. Charles Morrison, our former East-West Center president and senior fellow, wrote a Star Advertiser piece on the Biden-UN summit and how it highlights the importance of this deep alliance. And Dr. Tai-Un Beck also appeared this week on Hawaii News Now Sunrise to underscore the importance of the U.S.-Korea, South Korea ties. Given all the significant events that have been occurring and the long ties of Hawaii and Korea, and the 2023 marking the 70th anniversary of the Korean War Armistice Agreement and the Mutual Defense Treaty that created the alliance between the United States and Korea, our panelists agreed here that we should highlight why Korea matters for Hawaii, not just America, but for Hawaii, and why Hawaii matters for Korea. So we have an excellent panel here that you've all been so patiently waiting. And we hope to at least fulfill some of that networking time with the wonderful refreshments. But we have, of course, our Lieutenant Governor. Our panelists include, again, the Consul General, Hong, as well as Dr. Beck and Dr. Schultz. But before I introduce my first speaker again, thank you again to the UH Korean Studies for the refreshments. And one quick admin note, you probably found the restrooms outside. So now the moment you've all been waiting for, you've come here to hear. Our own Hawaii's Lieutenant Governor, Sylvia Luke. She is Hawaii's 16th Lieutenant Governor and the third woman to hold the office, and I'm really proud to say that. And the highest ranking Korean American in a U.S. statewide position. Lieutenant Governor Luke was first elected to the Hawaii State Legislature in 1998, where she served until 2022. During her 24-year tenure at the State House, and she had many roles, most notably as the chair of the Finance Committee, where she developed a reputation for bringing transparency and accountability to the state budget for over a decade. I wanted to share this. You know, we don't normally read all of the bio, but I think this is really important. The fact that she was born in Seoul, South Korea, and Lieutenant Governor Luke immigrated to Honolulu at the age of 9 with her parents and siblings. and went on to do great things in our public school system, Roosevelt High School, University of Hawaii, and of course, yes, and her first introduction to public service was in college when she was elected as one of the few female presidents of the Associated Students of the University of Hawaii. Following her undergraduate degree, she continued her education at the University of San Francisco Law. We all know her reputation here. I could go on, but I am just so honored that you would spend the time here, Lieutenant Governor, to be with us. And I wanted to hand it over to you to make a few remarks, opening remarks, before we begin our panel.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Aloha. Thank you, Suzanne. I think the introduction might take longer than my entire remarks. But it's such a pleasure to be back. I attended the University of Manoa, and my initial college was College of Tropical Agriculture, which was right down this road. And just to come back and I look at all these buildings, I look at all the products and the students and the great people who came out of the university system always give me so much joy, and it's such an honor to be back. Just like, I'm back home. At the University of Hawaii, I was the student body president. And at that point in time, the last time a woman became a president was 10 years before me. And I took that responsibility very seriously because not just as a woman, but as a Korean American woman, to have others see you and represent, it meant a lot. So after myself, we did have a lot more women come forth and then run for public office in student government at UH. I think for all of us, I'm the 16th Lieutenant Governor, third woman, but I am the only Korean American to hold a statewide office, and I think that means something. For each of you folks, even General Hara, even many of you folks, I see former Representative Pat Branco out there, and then Jean, and many others who are taking up roles and who are in your capacity doing the work that you do. It is about representation. It is about who you represent, and for others to see who you are, and for others and for younger generation to see you and to have you succeed, so that they can look at themselves and go, oh, I can be just like her, or I can be just like that individual. I think as Korean American, I feel that responsibility, and I take it very seriously. For myself, as Suzanne mentioned, I immigrated to Hawaii when I was 9 years old, and I couldn't speak a word of English. And I had a teacher in my elementary school at Kaumano Elementary School who spent her own time out of her day, spent every day to teach me English. And she said, I'm not going to send you to an ESL class because you'll be with tons of other kids. You're not going to learn as much. And if I spend time with you every day after school, then you're going to learn much more. And because of that, that was my first experience of how special this place is, and how special it is for people who didn't know you to go out of their way to help you. And I think that's what makes Hawaii special. And it is even more special that this year is the 120th anniversary of the immigration from Korea to anywhere in the United States. The first people from Korea landed here, and this was the gateway for the rest of the nation. And just think about it, how special that is. About 100 people left Incheon and then landed here, and through that, it opened up the gateway to other states for Koreans to feel comfortable leaving their homeland and having opportunities elsewhere and having a second opportunity. And for me, because of that, I'm very grateful for the decision that my family made in immigrating here for Hawaii to give me that second chance, for somebody like us, for Hawaii to open up, to give us that opportunity, and for me now standing in front of you to hold the lieutenant governor's office and to be addressing you. You know, I went to the Big Island and I was speaking to a group of students at a Hawaiian immersion school. And this is a school K to 12. They only speak Olelo Hawai'i, and it's called Navahi. So Navahi invited me to come and visit them. And they said, you know what? It's important for these kids not only to hear English, but Olelo Hawai'i, but it's important for them to understand what other languages sound like. So in as much as, I don't speak that much Korean, I studied up and I tried to look at, okay, are there things that I can say? So I said stuff like, 안녕하세요, 저는 부주사님. 부주사님 means lieutenant governor, and I said, thank you for allowing me to be here. 감사합니다. And so as I was learning about some of the words that I would speak to these kids who are speaking Olelo Hawai'i in the school and at home, one of the things I realized was there's so much similarities between Olelo Hawai'i and Olelo Hawai'i and Korean. And the reason for that is both languages were verbal languages. And because they were verbal languages, some of the things that are in Olelo Hawai'i or Hangul, you can't translate it. So the biggest example is in Hawaii, we say aloha. But aloha, people go, okay, what does aloha mean? Does it mean hello? Does it mean goodbye? Does it mean love? It doesn't mean any of those things. It's like this feeling, it's like this, it's the being of being aloha. It's a thing of yourself. And you can't completely translate it. So just like in Korean, you have things like nukim, right? And you have things like o nunchiba. That's like saying you gotta read the room, but you can't really translate those things into proper, correct English. And I watch Korean drama. Sometimes it drives me crazy because the subtitles don't really match up. And I know some of you folks who know Korean and understand, you're reading it and you go, that's not what they're saying. Because I think that's what makes Hawaii and Olelo Hawai'i and Korean so special. And there's a special tie because we understand each other, because our culture and heritage was written. Our culture and heritage started out as a verbal language. And when you are speaking as opposed to writing, you have to read the room and you have to understand so much things. It is about relationship. It is about interaction. It is about different type of things that you can't write down. And when I was thinking about that, that made Hawaii and Korea even more special, that there's this connection. One of the things that as a Korean American elected official, I got invited to Korea along with a bunch of other ethnic Korean politicians around the world. And so whenever you have this gathering, you get to understand, and you have this deep understanding that we cannot just be US centric, or you cannot just be Hawaii centric. You get to understand and have an understanding of where even Uzbekistan Korean, or Russian Korean, or German Korean, or Australian Korean, because these are all, I was like amazed that you had a member of the parliament in Australia or New Zealand, somebody who is partial Korean in Germany. We came together, had a conversation, had an understanding of what being ethnic Korean in the world meant. And it was such a fabulous conversation. But I think through these connections and through this conversation, it really leads to something. It leads more than economics. It leads to more than a relationship. It leads to a true understanding, which will lead to peace, and which will lead to stronger dialogue, and which will lead to what does the conflict in Korean Peninsula will mean to each of us and the world. So mahalo for inviting me today and being a part of today's great dialogue. I'm looking forward to hearing the panelists speak, and thank you for allowing me to be in your space.
So at this time, we're going to go ahead and start our panel. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor, for your gracious words and sharing a little bit of your story and your perspectives. So we want to start with our panel, our distinguished panelists here, starting with our Consul General, Hong, who is a senior official at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Korea, of course, representing this amazing country here in Hawaii. And many of us know him very well. I could read his whole bio, but I don't want to steal the time that you're going to speak. And right following him, of course, then we will have our second panelist, of course, Dr. Tae Eun-baek, is Professor of Law and Director of the Center of Korean Studies here at the University of Hawaii, but also a hero in Korea. And he won't say it, but we all know the story. And if you're curious, you can go find out. Look him up. And also our third panelist, Dr. Edward Schultz, but we call him Ned, East-West Center alum. He's very proud. You know, he's a professor emeritus at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And he has a long, extensive history of not just studying here at East-West Center, but also in Korea and Japan. And he is the winner of the 2023 29th Youngjae, and I'm looking at my friend Myung if I pronounced that right, Youngjae Academic Award. And so very distinguished career as well. But I know that we're short on time, so I want to allow them to share more about why does Korea matter to Hawaii and Hawaii matter to Korea. So over to you.
Aloha.
Is it on?
Aloha.
We heard you.
Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke, Dr. Hughes, and Dr. Beck, Jerusalem, distinguished guests. First of all, thank you for having me here and joining us here in person and virtually. My pleasure and privilege to attend at today's conference, which is held at the most timely manner. As other panels are expected to cover Korea-Hawaii relations, I'd like to take this opportunity to focus primarily on President Yoon Suk-yeol's state visit to Washington, D.C. held last week. In short, the visit was successful and great in terms of various events, its content, protocol as well. The summit meeting, the state dinner, visit to the Arlington National Cemetery, as well as the Korean War Memorial, and the address to a joint session of the Congress. All programs were well organized and brought wonderful results. The main takeaway of the visit, I think, can be summarized in terms of the four aspects. First, two presidents have reaffirmed the alliance is an alliance of universal values. President Yoon has stated during his address to the Congress, freedom, human rights, and democracy are the very foundation of our bond. The summit meeting also was an appraisal of the past 70 years of the ROK-US alliance, which stands as one of the most successful alliances in history. Korea has recently emerged as the main actor in the Pacific region by maintaining an impressive record of sustained economic growth, while achieving a high level of democratic consolidation. Here it is important to note that such an accomplishment was made possible thanks not only to the renowned work ethic of hardworking Koreans, but also on our alliance, the bulwark of its foreign and security policy. Behind today's success and preeminent partnership of the RK-US I'm very poor at having. Behind today's success and the preeminent partnership of the RK-US alliance lies the shared values and solid trust between the two countries. Our alliance, rooted in the values of freedom, democracy, human rights, and rules-based international order, is immensely more resilient and enduring than normal relations based on just common interest or a relationship based on marriage of convenience. As you know, Korea's remarkable success was also made possible to the country's strict adherence to the set of principles and values that have been spearheaded by the U.S. since World War II. We firmly believe that in the continued efficacy of the same set of values in the 21st century, in ensuring the long-term prosperity of Korea, along with every other country in the Pacific region. The two presidents have renewed their commitment to an inclusive, free, and fair international system and to working with like-minded partners against threats to ensure a prosperous future for the alliance and the Indo-Pacific region. Second, North Korea. Over the most volatile nuclear threat from North Korea, in order to protect the safety of the people, it takes to defend the peace on the Korean Peninsula with the overwhelming might of the alliance. Before the state visit in Korea, concrete measures were expected to be arranged to more reliably enhance the U.S. ability to execute extended deterrence and reassure the Korean people. I personally don't have any doubt about the U.S. commitment to extended deterrence, but Korean public is still worried. Two presidents answered the call. The two leaders have agreed to establish a nuclear consultative group, NCG, to strengthen extended deterrence, to ensure that the Pentagon shares information on operating its nuclear weapons with South Korea and allow the ally to participate in the planning stage when needed. NCG is the Korean version of NPG operated by NATO, and the difference between the two is that the NPG was born under the collective security system, while the NCG is the first bilateral commitment made by the U.S. The two presidents upgrade the concept of mutual defense to include nuclear weapons by adopting the Washington Declaration. Third, in order for Korea and U.S. to advance anew toward the next 70 years, the summit meeting has expanded the scope of alliance to make sure it evolves in line with the changing times. Having started as a military alliance, the ROK-US alliance relationship has subsequently deepened exchanges and cooperation in a wide range of areas such as economy, society, even culture. The visit served to elevate ROK-US alliance to a technological alliance that encompasses various cutting-edge fields such as AI, quantum, bio, cyber, and space, so as to adapt to an era in which national power is determined by economic security and technological innovation. Finally, the summit has launched youth exchange program aimed at increased exchange between youth, who are the future of the alliance. In particular, President Yoon took note of the importance of people-to-people exchange in promoting the relationship and friendship between the countries. For the Korean Americans in Hawaii, his mention of immigration was very encouraging. In his address to a joint meeting of the Congress, he said, quote, early Korean immigrants arrived as workers on sugarcane plantation in Hawaii. Since then, Korean Americans have made their way into many parts of the American society. They have played an important role fostering closer friendship and writing the history of our alliance, unquote. In closing, once again, I would like to emphasize that no less important than shared values is the solid trust between the two countries and their people. In Washington, two presidents have spent many hours together and have long and in-depth conversations strengthening the bonds of trust. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you to render continued interest and support for the alliance, because we need to make sure that the alliance, in the face of global challenges that amount to a historical turning point, evolves into an alliance in action toward the future for the next 70 years and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First of all, as a director of this center, I would like to apologize for the technical difficulties that we have had today. But please be considered, because all of the staff that are working today are students, undergraduate students. They are doing great. Please give a big applause. First of all, I would like to thank President Susan Perez-Long for proposing this event and also moderating this session. This is a very great opportunity for the center to further our cooperative relationship between this center, Korean Studies, as well as East-West Center. We have huge, respect for what East-West Center is doing. We also would like to thank the Consul General Office of the Republic of Korea in Honolulu for its ongoing, continuing support for the center and also for the university as a whole. Especially, we are really proud that Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Loh is with us today, and we really think she will be continuously our important asset for this state. As a director of the center, I would like to also welcome all of you who are here for this important event. I'm glad that we are having this event in connection to South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol's visit to Washington, D.C., who had a summit meeting with the President Joe Biden. The summit meeting reiterated the ironclad relationship between the two countries. It also responded to the challenges of North Korean nuclear weapon and missile development with extended deterrence policy. One measure they agreed upon during this summit was the creation of the Nuclear Consultation Group, as Consul General Hong mentioned. We all know that the challenges that we encounter in Northeast Asia concerning security and economic cooperation are not an easy task to handle. I believe all Northeast Asian countries, including China, Japan, North Korea, and South Korea, are in search for a new world order at this time. The new security challenges with the Ukraine-Russian war and the issues such as Southeast China Sea and so forth also need our special attention. However, I believe the world should not move into another Cold War or any type of arms race. We should not solely focus on military responses, accelerating military tensions. Rather, we should try to promote efforts to build peace, reducing tensions, and promoting better economic cooperation among the countries. In this regard, I would argue that the relationship between Korea and Hawaii should play a key role in promoting peace and cooperation between the United States and Korea, and also among Northeast Asian countries. First of all, as we all know, Korea has had a very special and important relationships with Hawaii, with its immigration history. The history of Korean immigration first started in 1903, making this year as the 120th anniversary. The first 7,400 some Korean immigrants who came to Hawaii after 120 years grown to be about 2 million in the United States. More than 50,000 Korean Americans are living in Hawaii at this time. We all know that the picture brides who came to Hawaii relying on a photograph of a potential husband had contributed to cultivating beautiful lives of Korean community in Hawaii. After 1965, new Korean immigrants started to come to the United States and also to Hawaii. They are enriching the diverse culture of Hawaii. Korean Hawaiian community in a nutshell is playing a significant role as part of the Hawaiian community, as also illustrated by the presence of Lieutenant Governor Luke. Korean Americans are doing very, very important role in Hawaii as well as in the United States. And after the pandemic, we also witnessed increasing Korean tourism to Hawaii. And as we all know, Hawaii is one of the most popular destinations for honeymoon trip in Korea. Furthermore, Hawaii is the place where the United States Indo-Pacific Command is based. The strong military cooperation between the two countries makes the Korean-Hawaiian relationship increasingly important. Second, I would like to mention the Center for Korean Studies itself is one of the important attestation of the significant relationship between Korea and Hawaii. The Center for Korean Studies, established in 1972, has been leading the Korean studies in the United States and in North America. Though Korean studies first grew from the curiosity of the Westerner on Korea in the 19th century, mostly led by the missionary groups. Gradually, generations of educated scholars came out, furthering the Korean studies in the 20th century. And by during the World War II, the need for language, history, and politics education even strengthened Korean studies in North America. In 1967, for the first time, the Association for Asian Studies established Korean Section Committee in its association, which actually was led mostly by the faculty members of the University of Hawaii during the time. Subsequently, the University of Hawaii professors who reached some critical mass decided to establish the Center for Korean Studies in 1972. This beautiful building was started to be built in 1974, and it was actually completed in 1980. I think this building itself is also a monument that shows how the relationship between Korea and Hawaii works. If you go out to the signboard in front of the Center for Korean Studies, the backside of it actually has a story how this building materialized. When they were starting this construction in 1974, they thought this building can be built with $450,000 only. And they initially received a $200,000 commitment from Korea, and thought that our professors establishing a committee, decided to raise another $250,000 with fundraising. However, in reality, it took $1,518,716. Interestingly, $598,000 around that amount came from Korea. $426,000 came from the fundraising in Hawaii and also mainland United States. And finally, because of the shortfall, the state of Hawaii actually legislated to award $523,054. So 1/3 came from Korea, another 1/3 came from Korean American community, and the last 1/3 came from the state of Hawaii. This center, I think, is in that sense also a good example how cultural exchanges had started and nourished in this Hawaii community. At this center, we have around 47 collections on the third floor of this building in attic. And in those collections, we have artifacts and archival collections, which are revisited over and over again by many researchers and historians and scholars. As you may remember, former South Korean President Moon Jae-in came to this center in 2021 to award the Order of Merit to the descendants of the two women patriots who fought against Japanese colonial rule. And it was a result of the research of the CPS scholars who excavated the facts and historical events, identifying their meritorious activities. The center is working to explore also vision for Korean American population and possible roles for Korean diaspora through these activities. Finally, I'd like to emphasize the also important historical fact that Korean people in Hawaii helped to prepare the foundation for cultural political structure, the foundation for current political structure in Korea. As you know, Korea experienced the occupation by Japan from around 1905 until 1910, which lasted more than 30 years. Overseas Korean organizations, most importantly those in Hawaii, formed organizations such as the Korean National Association, and they developed an idea that the democratic republic form of government in lieu of a monarchy should be established in Korea after they obtained the independence of Japan. As early as in 1909, 1910, they started to discuss democracy and American-style republicanism in their newspapers published in Hawaii. When Korean independent movement, nationwide movement broke out on March 1st in 1919, Seung-man Lee, one of the key leaders of the Korean community in Hawaii, also in North America, was elected to be the president of the provisional government in Shanghai. He later became the first president of the Republic of Korea in 1948. Korean American people residing in Hawaii seems to be always diligent, working hard and working together. This Korean National Association had published the newspapers such as Korean National Herald from 1909, and later Pacific Weekly and other newspapers were published in Korean. Also, the young Korean, American Koreans, those newspapers were published in English in Hawaii as well. We have those materials here in this center. We are digitizing them, and we are planning to make those newspapers available to be reminded who we were and what we wanted to achieve in this Hawaii. We also have in Hawaii, as you may all know, Korean Times in Hawaii as KBFD television program, which are, those Korean media are very important in its promoting role of promoting cultural exchanges between Korea and Hawaii. And we are also digitizing those 50-year-old Korea Times in Hawaii, which will be available later through our website for you to revisit anytime. In this way, we are very proud that Korea and Hawaii relationship had been continuing a very, very significant. And it is not only tourist and tourism destination relationship. Many people in Hawaii, in Korea, now understand that Hawaii is not only a tourist destination, but also they know that this is an important place that demonstrates the origin and the spirit of Korean people. This is an event for us to think, what we can do more in the future. In that sense, I'm really happy to have this dialogue. Thank you very much.
I know we're running short of time, so I'll try to do fast. Very first thing, though, I do want to thank East West Center as well for publishing Korea Matters. And this is not the first year Korea Matters has come out. They've done it since 20. Yeah, it's 4th edition. And it's really informative. So if you didn't pick up a copy, out there's some, and there's also on the webpage. So it's really got lots of great stuff. And I'm not biased, although I'm an East West Center product. So anyway, I sort of want to just very briefly talk about early Koreans, which are 1903 to 1965. And then the second wave begins in 1965 and sort of is still washing up, even today. And it's important to realize that in, say, a century ago, Hawaii had roughly 10,000 people, but 90% of the Koreans living in the United States live right here. 90%. So, I mean, sure, there were some people in LA, there's some people in California, other parts of California, but the big center was right here in Hawaii. And that helps explain the role that Hawaii ends up playing in the things that Dr. Peck just mentioned. Today, the local population is roughly 53,000, and according to the document here, 53. And but it's actually somewhat elusive. I actually maintain it's probably 100,000 Korean Americans. Because, just to use one example, my sons went to Kamehameha, and some of their best friends, one guy was called McNichol, and another guy was something else. He's a quarter Korean because his grandmother married a Hawaiian, and so on and so on. So if you really look closely at the population, it's much larger than 53,000. What's also interesting, though, is today it's the 10th most populous state for Koreans. Again, if you look at page 42, he gives all of those things. So it's quite different from the way it was a century ago, when 90% of Koreans lived right here, to today, just much smaller. We don't need to talk about initially the 7,000 and the picture rights, because that's been covered so many things. But what we see is the evolution of the Korean community, very, very gradually, very, very importantly. And you really have to start and credit the role of Christian churches in this, because many of the, not many, but maybe roughly half of the first immigrants that came did have ties to Christianity at one point or another. And churches became a very important rallying point for Koreans to come together and build their community. And it's through these churches, in part, that Korean independence became so much a focus. And I guess we should thank Japan in one respect, because it had colonized Korea, and the Koreans didn't like it at all. And they were going to try to rebel and build up and restore the Korean independent Korean identity. And so really it's in the churches. You see a lot of this coming together. And coupled with the churches were, I don't pushing Christianity, but it's an important way of educating people. And because to be a good Christian, you have to read, you have to read the Bible in particular. But this was a way in which Koreans very early on became quite literate. In fact, the idea is among the first immigrants to come, roughly 40% were literate. which is very high at that point for groups coming in from Asia. And this whole focus on literacy and learning, studying, become an important undercurrent for why ultimately Koreans become, I would say, very successful in the islands. Early on, they put a lot of this energy into politics, and again because of the loss of the nation. And gradually, you have two key leaders in the independence battle. One is Syngman Rhee, which you just mentioned. There's also another individual named by the name of Pak Yong-man. And both these people initially were very friendly with each other, but then they had different ideas on how to achieve independence. But it was very much a discussion in Korean families. How do we gain our independence? How do we regain the sovereignty of Korea? And so, as I say, the Koreans were very, very quick to organize. And I focus on the churches in part. I focus upon the loss of the nation. But I also focus on the Koreans became increasingly urban as time progressed. They somehow or other didn't like living on plantations. I'm not quite sure what the problem is. Today we love the plantations, but it was a very, very hard life. And many often picked up and left and moved to Honolulu. 1950, just to give you some history, 68% of the Korean population lived right here in Honolulu. And so that was happening from 1905 right up continually. And that's why Honolulu becomes such a positive pressure cooker for forwarding Korean identity, Korean independence. What's also interesting is when the Koreans came in, and this comes back to my figure of roughly 100,000 Korean Americans, in 1960, 80% of Korean marriages were out marriages. They were not marrying other Koreans. Well, there's a lot of reasons behind that. But Koreans were much more willing to go out. They didn't necessarily just have to marry Koreans. It's in part because there were not a lot of Korean women. It's in part because the population was much smaller. But they were very, very quickly becoming acculturated. And this is also tied into the Koreans having a very, very high level of literacy. And that helps explain why these newspapers, as you mentioned, become so important. And we know that in the second generation of Korean Americans, they had a very, very high level of education. And that begins to be seen in also many ways in the 60s and 70s as they become graduates of the University of Hawaii. They go into law, they go into medicine. And in 1970, I think Koreans had the highest per capita income in the state of Hawaii. There's a lot of reasons behind that, but it was a very, very high cultural group. And a lot of those folks, as second generation Koreans, were very, very proud. And one reason we have the things we're talking about in the Center for Korean Studies is because of them. Over here, the No Auditorium. Ever hear of No Foods? They're Korean Americans. Was that message for me? Okay, I'll move ahead very, very quick. Korean War came, and a lot of local Koreans went off and fought in Korea, and that further brought the bonds together. After the war was over, Korea was, I don't want to say it was in shambles, but it was really hard pressed. And Korean Americans here decided to give money to build a university called Inha University in Insha. And today it's called Inha. You're going to hear this if you haven't heard it from me. You'll hear it again and again. In Chun, Hawaii. That's how Inha comes about as a good university. And so this is how the first generation, first wave, really took an interest in Korea. Korea mattered to them not only as their home, but also in terms of a way to invest and build a new society. The second wave comes in, and they are a little different because Korea is now a nation. They're not fighting to bring Korea back. But they're very interested in maintaining Korea, but also very interested in making it in Hawaii. And so you have the first generation comes in. You have a few great 1.5s that come in, and and they begin to become a very, very important part in reshaping our Korean perspective. And this is during the second wave that the Center for Korean Studies really takes off for a large part, in part because of the first wave, trying to invest so heavily, but you also find the United States is far more interested in what's going on in Asia and the rest of the world. The East-West Center at this point, 1960, takes off. And East-West Center was such a wonderful place for Koreans to come to Hawaii because there was no money to travel overseas. There was no scholarships to go to any major university. East-West Center was bringing in maybe 25 to 30 graduate students a year to study, and just giving a whole new perspective. So that makes Hawaii a really strong center for the study of Korea, the study of Asia. And the East-West Center produced all sorts of great people, even a few representatives from Hawai'i from the East-West Center. Anyway, so Hawaii becomes a major center. And my good colleague here failed to mention a very, very important language program in Hawaii called the Korean Flagship Program. And Hawaii has led in the study of the Korean language. And it's still right up there, very, very top. We can see, and there's so many ways in which Korea is important to Hawaii, Hawaii is important to Korea. We also mentioned, of course, that by the 1970s, we were producing a number of great political leaders. We have, today, we've had senators, we have representatives, former Chief Justice, Ronald Reuel is one more example. And so Korea has emerged in so many ways with a population of less than 2% representing Hawaii in here, and yet we see Koreans playing a role, so many roles. And in part, I think it goes back to the Korean focus on education, the Korean focus on literacy. And I think that sets a firm foundation for Korea's move ahead. And there's a lot more I'd like to talk to you. I haven't even talked about BTS. But time is up, and I want to thank you again for allowing us to speak.
Well, thank you so much, Kangen, as well as Dr. Beck and Dr. Schultz for your insightful remarks, and Lieutenant Governor, for taking us on a journey that started with our Lieutenant Governor that we're so proud of, that represents everything we just talked about of why Korea matters. And then we went on a journey into this relationship that has grown from the official position from Kangen Hong, who told us about how important this alliance is, the Biden meeting, and where we are today. And then we went back in time a little bit, Dr. Beck, telling us the roots. Where did this all start? And where were we? And how did we get here today? And then, not just in Hawaii, we went back to how does Hawaii contribute also to Korea? And we heard that from Dr. Schultz, the contributions in education, as well as the veterans who have contributed from Hawaii in large numbers to the Korean War, where we stay, where we are today. I know we wanted to have questions, but we had so much rich information that was provided, and we're so very grateful for this time. But this tells us is there's so much more to discuss. I believe this is the beginning of a conversation that has to continue. This event alone highlights how very important it is for us to talk about why we matter for one another. And I think when I will go to Seoul in the middle of May to launch why Korea matters for America and why America matters for Korea, we will continue that dialogue. And one thing that was mentioned that we didn't talk too much is the arts and culture, and how Korean culture is infusing all of this nation, but also the world, in a variety of different ways. So hopefully, maybe the next time you could have BTS and some other arts and culture content. So maybe we can coordinate that. But this is a continuing celebration of our relationship. And I really want to thank each and every one of you for being here and being online, because you're the reason why we can celebrate why we matter for each other. Because if we don't have people like you who care, then where would we be? So I hope you'll spread the word, and we'll continue this conversation. And until next time, mahalo nui loa, and thank you all so very much.